need your resources. Secondly, I want to say really quick before we jump to you is that I just want to congratulate Brother Nick Brooks. I think that we were talking earlier. It is almost an impossibility, and this is something that you don't know until you get on this side of the wall. It is almost an impossibility to do this for everybody. By the way, right? It doesn't matter what you look like. It is almost impossible for you to make one of these. It is even more impossible if you make one of these and you look like us. And so I just want to say congratulations to Nick. I want to praise you. All right.
Yeah.
We a little late, so I want to jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
We late because of me, by the way. I'm so sorry. DC is, we all know what it is. The one-way street's a killer, right? 2 lanes become 1. And y'all know how it goes if you live here. Let's start off, man. For those of you, the book came out today.
Yep. Thank you.
Brand new.
Yeah.
And so before we get going, I want you to tell these folks what the book is about. Give them your elevator pitch. Give them your 30 seconds without spoiling nothing.
Absolutely. Well, real quick, I'll just introduce myself and, kind of tell you a quick synopsis of my story. Nick Brooks, I from Northeast DC, grew up right here. I spent a lot of time in this library right here. I went to school down the street to Banneker, right up Georgia Avenue. Before that, I was at Jefferson over in Southwest. Before that, I was at Noyes off Rhode Island Avenue. You know what I'm saying? I grew up, I'm DC through and through. I went to Howard undergrad, went to George Mason grad school. So, you know what I'm saying? This is my hometown. My family is from here for generations. And this book is really a labor of love because I'm talking about, and I'm exploring the POV of boys that look like us growing up here and a lot of the boys that I worked with when I was an educator. But what the book is about is this all-boys charter school, Urban Promise Prep, at which this authoritarian principal turns up murdered, and 3 boys emerge as suspects in the crime before, of course, there's ever a trial presented. And the boys all, are suspicious of each other, but eventually decide that they need to work together to figure out what happened if they want to clear their names. And I was just telling Jason, like, being a black man and trying to strive and trying to do your best is hard to tap in with other black men. It's hard to work together because of the system. And so a lot of that is reflected in this book, how these boys have to come together to figure out what's going on and, solve their problem together.
Let's start from the jump. Actually, can I? We don't have. I would love for you to read some.
Yeah.
But because we're going to be a little bit truncated, there is something I want to read.
Okay.
Just really quickly, if you all don't mind, at the very beginning of the book.
Okay.
Which I just think is provocative. It's powerful. I personally think it's true.
Yeah.
I'm sure not everybody does.
Yeah.
And it's a dope way to start the book. And I hope nobody, how when you get a book, you be skipping the forward. Don't skip none of the. You know what I mean? We all know what y'all do. By the way, we know y'all skipping forwards, not right. Just read the whole book, right? So this is how the book starts. It says, "I've noticed a fascinating phenomenon in my 25 years of teaching that schools and schooling are increasingly irrelevant to the great enterprises of the planet. No one believes anymore that scientists are trained in science classes or politicians in civics classes or poets in English classes. The truth is that schools don't really teach anything except how to obey orders. This is a great mystery to me because thousands of humane, caring people work in schools as teachers and aides and administrators, but the abstract logic of the institution overwhelms their individual contributions. Although teachers do care and do work very hard, the institution is psychopathic. It has no conscience. It rings a bell, and the young man in the middle of writing a poem must close his notebook and move to a different cell where he must memorize that man and monkeys derive from a common ancestor." This is by John Taylor Gatto from a book called Why Schools Don't Educate. Why did you, now I'm just telling you right now, for a book that's about to exist in schools, you have to tell me why, the thought process about why you chose to start with this brilliant excerpt.
Yeah, to be honest, I never even thought about it. Like, yo, this is going to exist in schools.
Yeah,
so
you ruined it. Just so you know, not happening.
Yeah. But I mean, I've always been like, I want to destroy systems. You know what I mean? And it's like thinking about the education system. Coming through DCPS, me being a teacher, I worked for an organization called Teach for America. Did that. And just like the quote says, this is not an attack on teachers. It's not an attack on educators, administrators. It's an attack on the system, right? And the way that we educate our black and brown kids to underserved communities. And so for me, like you said, the quote just rang so true to the theme of the story. You know, it's everything that I saw while I was in the classroom, that choices were being made that did not serve kids, essentially, right? And it's like, why are we making choices that don't serve kids? Instead, we're serving a quota or another adult's opinion, or, you know, whatever it may be. And so the quote just really hit me. You know, it was, to be honest, I'm trying to think of like where in the process I found the quote. But it might have been one of the first things, you know what I'm saying, that really just inspired me. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, hey, let's put it at the top. Let's let them know what they're getting, you know what I'm saying, get into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not like the kids don't know.
You feel
it's
me?
Not like the teachers don't know,
yeah.
right? Like my mom was an educator.
Yeah.
She never had any problems with the kids.
Yeah.
She only had problems with the system, right? Yeah. That prohibited her.
Yeah.
From actually being an educator, from actually educating, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's move forward to so here's my thing, right? I'm always interested in the minutia of this process, and these are things that people don't typically ask just because people want to talk about the meat of a book, but this is day number 1, so we can't really talk too much about the meat of a book because then we would ruin the process of you reading it. Yeah. So for people like me who have to host people on day number 1, it's a little bit of a tricky dance, right? Because we can't get into too much of it, because then why would you read the book, right? Yeah. But I am curious about the title.
Yeah.
More so curious about the title of the school.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why. Like, I've been to these, like, I spent my life in these schools.
Yeah.
And they always got these titles, right? It's like this interesting thing that we sort of use to, like, it's like the wildest commercial for, like, hopeful exceptionalism amongst black and brown children, right? It's like Urban Promise School, right? Yeah. The promise of what? Promise to who? Like, what are we exactly, like, what is this really about? I'm always curious, right? Yeah. And so talk a bit about the naming of this school, your process in choosing this name, and if there's anything behind it, and just a bigger conversation around this kind of, like, you know, the urban promise.
Well, it's ironic because, like, to your question, like, the promise for what, right? And then when you read the book and you see how the school treats the kids, and you figure out, you know, what the mystery is and what's going on, things are being stripped from these kids, right? And so for me, you know, initially this was actually an idea that was pitched to me through Cake. I don't even know, Cake Creative, yeah. And so she came to me and was like, yo, got this idea, Urban Promise Prep, you know, a school mystery where a principal is murdered. And she kind of knew my background. We kind of talked about it. I came from film and TV. She read a script of mine, a mystery script, and she was like, is this something you'd be interested in tackling? And so I was like, yeah. So that's kind of where the title came from. And then as far as, like, the promise of what it is, it's really irony, because what they're promising these kids is a future, a brighter way, college education. And when you read the book, you'll see that the principal, Mr. Moore, there's nothing that he's giving these kids. It's I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a little bit ironic. It's kind of like there is nothing that he's promising them, if that makes sense. You know, it's the idea of success. Go to college, you'll be successful. Actually, you can kind of compare it to the American dream. You know, like, the promise of the American dream is fake. You know what I mean? It's not something that it's not something that we can actually just give away. You know, it's something you got to work for.
We're going to get into the actual book in a second. But I do want to talk a bit about, because we talk about the principal, these sorts of schools. By the way, if any of you attend these kinds of schools, we're not trashing your school, but it is something that we, like, but it is something that we all should be critical of. Or just thinking about, right? Like, what does it mean to have, like, public schools, charter schools, private schools, parochial schools, all of the schools we have to be critical of all of the schools, right? We have to be thinking about what these institutions are doing to our young people, better or for worse, right? And that no school is a perfect school, but we should be thinking about it regardless, right? Yeah. This particular school, like, all right, there's this thing in the black community. I'm always careful about these kind of statements because we're such a polylith, right? But there is this interesting thing about, for many of us, where we feel, especially growing up, that, like, you are a representative of a whole, right? It's like, hey, whatever. I'm sure for all the black folk in the room, especially of a certain age, that you went through the thing where it's like, hey, you know, when you walk out of this house, you represent you, your mama, your daddy, your siblings, everybody who live in this house, so Big Mama, all the cousins who live here, everybody on this block, everybody in your city, everybody in your state if you live in a state, every black person that exists in America the entire continent of Africa, right? It's like you represent, you know what I'm saying, all the Caribbean, right? Like all of it is you, right? And it's an interesting thing that we sort of grow up with this idea around like, all right, I am one of the whole, right? Which I personally think is complicated and also amazing, right? Simultaneously. I feel like I'm a part of a unit. I also feel like I deserve to be who I am, right? It's rough, and not every culture has to deal with the pressure of that, right? This particular book, what happens in this school is that these young people, through discipline, quote unquote, are stripped of their identities and made part of the whole, right? And so I just want you to talk a bit about the psychology behind that. You've worked in these schools, like you know this sort of world, and sort of the dichotomy of like being sort of one of the whole and then being sort of one of the herd, which are very different things, you know.
That's a deep question. I'm gonna go to this quote from a guy in film. His name is Kenya Barris. I don't know if y'all know Kenya Barris, but he has this thing that he always says is that because of slavery. Right. And so when you talk about that, the idea of because of slavery, I think about that a lot. And the idea that, like, I think this is part of the process. This is part of the system. It was meant to be like that. It was meant for us all to be the same. You know, our identity, we have amazing identities. You know, we're you know, we want to dance, we want to sing, we're creators, like we're brilliant, like all of these different things were stripped from us. Right. And I think that process is something that we continue because, again, it's like you know, generational trauma, so to speak. You know, this is something that I just always go back because of slavery. This is how it started, and I think it's just us playing into the system. The system hasn't really changed that much, essentially, right? So we get into these schools, and that's the thing. How can we strip you of all your identity and make you just another worker or another, you know, just a member of society that's placated, that just goes along with the program, so to speak? Like, how can we program you to go along with the program? And I think that's something that's just inherent to the process, to be honest. And again, I feel like we could trace it all the way back.
I think, you know, one of the funniest words to consider, as you all read the book, by the way, there will be lots to consider, but one of the things that I'm always interested in discussing and dissecting and sort of excavating ideas from is the word discipline. I'm so fascinated by the word discipline and the way that it sort of shows itself depending upon the pocket of life in which you sort of reside, right? Depending upon your context and framework, discipline means lots of things. You know, we're in like a space that right now we're in a time of soft parenting, which is a fascinating thing for me, who was not parented softly, right? And survived and made it and feel like I did okay. Shout out to my OG, right? But I also think about it in terms of passion. Right? So discipline is like to discipline someone, and the discipline is like ability, right? Like your craft is also your discipline, right? And so I think about how these two things simultaneously, depending upon how one is enacted, exist on opposite ends of a spectrum, when truthfully they should be closer together, right? Like my ability to be self sort of disciplined, or my ability to sort of exist in a space where I am being disciplined or have discipline, has everything to do with my discipline being the thing I needed to be in terms of it coming to fruition. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Right. So in this story, talk a little bit about what the principal, who I feel no sorrow for, which is wild to not feel for a person who's been murdered. Which is wild. I'm just like, But talk a bit about his ideas around discipline and what it's doing to the students in the school.
And and it's a great question. It goes right back to what I was saying. I think for him, he believes that in order for you to matriculate through the system, you have to be perfect. You have to be a perfect black man, right? Because again, going back to, I hate to keep bringing, you might hear slavery a lot, but I'm sorry. It's like, I imagine, you know, it's one of those things, it's better for me to beat you now and you learn, because when you go out there, think about Tyre Nichols, you know, right? Think about these things, like when you go out, they'll just kill you. You know, they'll just kill you if you're not perfect. If you don't walk in this straight line, if you don't listen to everything you're supposed to listen to, if you just step out of line a hair, they will kill you. And so I think for me, more, at least in my mind, because I understand when you say that you weren't necessarily parented softly, and even with myself understanding that you know, the reason that maybe I was parented the way I was is because of that reason. Is because somebody understanding that I need you to be excellent because you're a black boy, and if you go out here and you're not excellent, it's going to be hard for you. And I think that's in my mind why Moore does what he does initially. It's like, I need to craft this thing to build these black boys into black men that can matriculate and navigate the system. And it goes right to your point about discipline. That's what his idea of discipline was. Being able to fall in line, be part of the program.
Talk a bit about DC. Like, all right, you're writing this book. It takes place right here in your hometown. Which, to me, adds an extra bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you writing about a place that, like, everybody know you know. Yeah. So if you get it wrong, everybody gonna be like, "Word, bro."
Yeah,
like,
bro. Yeah.
But it's a complicated thing. It's a complicated thing, right? Because you have to walk a fine line.
Yeah.
Between, like, as far as like writing a thing that feels true to the place in which it's being written.
Yeah.
But picking and choosing that which is to be used as season, right? As an accent to the story, and that which could be distracting.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're talking a bit about craft here, right?
Yeah.
So when you took this on, when you're like, I'm gonna write about this city, our city. What were some of your concerns? Yeah. What were you most excited about?
Yeah.
Like, how was that, like, writing about the place that you were brought up?
I mean, yeah, that in itself was really exciting because it was my proximity to the story, my proximity to the setting, something I knew I could tell. I'm really excited for the idea to bring, like you talked about resources, I'm really excited for the idea to bring business here, right? So, like, where this book goes on and lives after this. We talked about, like TV, film, whatever it is. How do I bring business here and give people that I know that I grew up with money? Like, how do I get money in their pockets through my craft, right? So I'm really excited about that. And you're totally right. It was a lot of, I mean, there was times where I remember I had to go back and Google. I'm like, let me double check this bus route to make sure that where I'm saying he's getting off the bus is the right joint. You know what I'm saying? Like, is this the X2 like, or the 90?
Yeah, I forget.
You know what I'm saying? And I've been gone for a minute. Like, I left. I mean, I left in, I forget. I don't know. I don't want to start throwing false dates out. But I've been gone for a minute. And so, so it was that pressure of, like, I got to look this up. I got to cross my T's, dot my I's. You said, what was I excited about? What was the other part? Oh, it was another part of that question you asked.
Is that what scared you? So you excited about bringing money, resources, and attention to the city?
Yeah, exactly.
And what bothered you? Or there's always that, like, I gotta get this right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there was anything necessarily that, I don't know if anything, like, I guess that's also, it's funny, what excited me worried me, right? Because I'm like, this really excites me to be bringing light to the city, but I guess to your point, the thing that could worry me is, like, I want to get it right. It's just the extra pressure of making sure that I get these details right, these facts right. People that you know what I mean? I want to represent the city well. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what that pressure is like, I want to, it's so funny because you started off by saying you walk out the house and you're a representation of your block and you're da-da-da. You're so right. That's exactly how I felt. It's like, okay, I got to represent the city well. I got to tell, like, this has to be good, right? This has to be compelling. It has to be emotional. It has to be all of these things because it's taking place in my city and I'm putting the city on my back, so to speak. And that's kind of like when you grow up in a city like a DC, because I know you probably the same way. That's just how you feel. It's like, yo, I got to put the city on my back. And that's probably what I was nervous about. I guess the other thing is just being embraced. Is my city going to embrace me? You know what I'm saying? Because being an artist, I've been an artist for a long time, and you kind of get accustomed, at least for me, depending on when you hit your success, you get accustomed to people not really caring about your art. You know what I'm saying? And so you just kind of make it and you put it out and you make it, and then you become accustomed to that, and that becomes the thing. Never really thinking people to pay attention to it. So for me, I guess the other worry was, like, is my city gonna embrace me? You know what I'm saying? Like, when I do come back home, are people gonna pick this up, read it, and just rock with me?
Of course. What are you talking about? Everybody want to show you love, bro. Like, everybody, you know what it is? I think that so many, especially kids in DC, I think they want to see themselves in these books. They want to hear their slang, right? Which is a different slang in our generation, right? But they want to see it. I saw you wrote "Kill Mo" in the book, right? That's a very specific thing to our city, to the kids of our city at that, right? Because I never grew up saying "Kill Mo." That was not a part of my generation, right? But for them, it's a real thing. And I always. DC's an interesting case because we live in a very, it's weird, we live in like a 10 by 10 tiny little city that 100%. Happens to be the most powerful city on the planet, right? But it's like this big, and that doesn't really have any, it doesn't have any sort of mass promotion to the rest of the culture of DC doesn't have any mass promotion to the rest of the world, which is wild, right? So like you talk about DC to anybody who's not from here,
it's politics.
They're gonna mention politics. But if you live here, you know that it's full of culture. But for some reason, we haven't been able to break through on a mass level culturally, right?
Yes.
So what happens? So the reason why, like, you can write a book about and use sort of every single piece of slang from New York, because we all know New York slang. The reason you can use every slang from the South, because we all know the slang from the South, either from our families or because of mass media, they're pushed to the rest of the country. The reason you can use stuff from the West, because all of it is pumped to the rest of the country. But our little city, which is a specific culture, right, has its own language, its own style, its own food, its own flavor. Everything is its own. But it's hard because no one else knows but us. So to take a risk, by the way, to put like Kill Mo in the book, because the truth is that some kid in Jersey will not know what that means.
Well, you know, the other thing too that connects it for me too is hip hop, right? Like, and I think like it's funny as I'm starting to move around, I'm starting to see a little bit of DC's like Glizzy. Or like, you know what I'm saying? I'm starting to
We've influenced everybody.
Yeah, we influence everybody.
For 50, 60, we've been
even
doing
if
this
we
for
don't
a
get
long
the
time.
credit, you know what I'm saying? We don't really get the credit. And it's a little bit through hip hop where people can start to say, okay, this is attributed to DC. I think that's the way to. But so for me, it's like this is obviously a way different medium, right? But still trying to bring that same flavor. Like, how do I bring the city and export it and push this culture out so people know that we got something going on here? Because I think, again, going back to like my family, I think we're special. You know what I'm saying? Like, growing up in DC, of course, you learn DC history, and you just know how, you know, DC, the slaves were freed here first, and how this was, Chocolate City, and we had commerce, and we had people with all types of money up and down U Street, and I mean, we were powerful people, and so, and still are, and so. To your point, I think that's one of the other things, going back to what I was excited about by placing the story in the city, was just the idea of finally being able to, because I was just having this conversation with my friend the other day, like who is the one, who's the one popping out of DC, like, you know, it's hard to say, because, you know, again, through hip hop, most people say like Wale or something like that, but it's hard because we just don't, for some reason it hasn't penetrated. But I think we about to turn that corner.
Yeah, I think you're about to turn the corner too. I mean, there's a lot of honestly, I think there's a lot of cats from here who just don't tell people they from here.
But
like,
why?
There's a whole lot of people who famous.
But why?
Because I don't think that they think that the city has enough cachet, and I think do I agree? No, but I do think that there's a weird thing about it, right? It's like you go and if, for those of you, anybody ever, if you lived in New York, you go to New York, you live there for 6 months. Everywhere else you go, you like, oh, I'm a New Yorker. Even no matter where you from. No matter where you from.
Same thing in LA.
Same in LA, right? Everybody at Angelino, it's like, you from Baltimore, right? Or you from
look
Philly?
at Pop. I ain't want to
like, nah, I'm from Angelino. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm from Inglewood. It's like, you live there, but you're not from Inglewood. It's like a weird thing, and I think and now Atlanta has they have an edge joint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just think we got to figure out. This is a conversation we can have off the. We can talk about
because we could rap all day about anything.
Let me ask you about the fact that this book. So just so y'all know, these kids are in a jam. Principal gets killed, and for all these reasons, these young boys have been lined up, right? Because they had these random moments. That now they're sort of being put in the spotlight, like, oh yeah, y'all actually are all suspects. Y'all was all in detention. They are not in detention. You know what I'm saying? You got into a fight with the principal, and now he dead. You did this, the principal threw away your papooses, and now he dead. Right? It's all this like. So we figured it got to be y'all, right? Talk a bit about. I heard this quote a long time ago that said, you know, one of the biggest issues with being a black and brown kid, oftentimes, is that, like, you know, the quote is that, like, black and brown adults are treated like children, and black and brown kids are treated like adults, right? And it's this idea that, like, a young man who is 16 is actually 30. Right, like he's going to be treated oftentimes like an adult, right? And so talk a bit about sort of about profiling, about assumptions and stereotypes. And it's tricky in this book.
It's tricky
because there's a lot of us in this room in that situation would be like, well, did he kill this? You read the book like, did he kill this person?
Well, and that's definitely 100% purposeful. It's like, it's good mystery. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I grew up reading like Walter Mosley. You know what I'm saying? And like I read the whole Easy Rollins series. Like,
yeah, because they're amazing.
Because they
all y'all should read. You can start with Devil in the Blue Dress.
Devil in the Blue Dress, yeah. A Red Death was my joint. Little Yellow Dog.
Yeah.
All of them joints.
They're all amazing.
Yeah, all amazing. And so, you know, crafting just having a well-constructed mystery is like just a joy of mine. And so you're totally right. Giving all of these kids motive, giving them all access. I remember like it's kind of like this diagram I had, like motive, access, a couple other things I got from like, you know, Law and Order. but building
like yarn on the board with the pins in it.
But to your point of like assumptions, I mean, again, we all like we've been profiled so many times, pulled out the car, all of that. I mean, it's just that's just a part of it. Like that's something we just know all too well. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't hard to imagine these, like assuming that these boys did this crime, because it's something we've just all seen so much. Like being a black man, growing up in the city. Yeah, I've so many. You know, hands on the hood. I mean, one time I was coming from teaching, bro. I had on like slacks and a polo, pulled out the car. You know what I'm saying? Went through my wife's purse. You know what I'm saying? Like type shit. Like, where the drugs? You know what I'm saying? Like that type of thing. And it's like, I don't know. It's just that was something that just kind of came naturally. You know what I'm saying? Like that was it. That's an easy part of the story to buy, because you know what I'm saying? Because it happens so much, and to a lot of us, if not all of us.
You know, I think, and we're going to take questions in a second.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite bits of the book, it's funny, right? Because have you read Monster?
Yeah.
Any of y'all read Monster? All right, well, if you read Monster, then it's going to be your jam, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if you read Monster,
yeah, Walter D. Myers,
y'all going to love this book.
That's another one of my guys that I read that I was reading early. Yeah.
One of the greatest books ever read.
Yeah.
But like I think with these books, sometimes what can happen if you're not careful is that like you can turn a young man into a symbol. Right? Like you can turn like a young man into an idea, right? Like this person represents a movement, an issue, you know, like all that is wrong with the world. And like, and suddenly we're doing the thing that we're saying everybody else is doing, right? It happens all the time. I read books all the time that I'm like, yo, you basically turn this kid into the very thing you're saying that everybody else is turning this kid into, which is basically a mule to carry your issues, right? Like that's what happens. What you do though, which I appreciate, is you keep them teenagers. Yeah. And one of the ways you do it, the way that I love to do it, is you introduce romance. It's important at that age, right? At that age, like young people are dealing with like their feelings around romance. Yeah. And you don't you let that live in the book despite all of the
things,
all of the, you know, the mess that is going on. So talk a bit about the humanization of these young men, right?
Extremely important, because especially when you're introducing them as suspects in a murder, we got to humanize them. You know what I'm saying? We got to make that turn. With the romance in particular, a lot of that is so funny. I was having a talk in LA when we did the launch, and like there's first of all, his girl's name is Kiana, right? And I was having this talk in LA about like how I had the realization maybe last week, like, oh, people are gonna read this book. You know what I'm saying? I put so many things in here that I didn't realize that I put. Like my girlfriend in high school name was Kiana. So I'm like, what am I? You know what I'm saying? What am I? I'm tripping. I know, but it was just like I just was a big example, but it's just like all of these things in here I was being vulnerable. But to your point, so you know him writing the rhymes on the bus about his girl, you know, that's me. You know what I'm saying? Like being a rapper, and that's how I communicate. But that's why it was important. I was like the lover boy in high school, you know what I'm saying, with the high school sweetheart. But also very like, you know, strong silent type, like JB. Like JB is probably who I kind of see myself in.
The best, though. That's my favorite character.
For okay,
JB,
that's what
JB is the man.
That's shit. Well, maybe I'm narcissistic. I love.
Maybe you just the man.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Maybe. But JB is the one who that was kind of like it just was close to me. He just felt like a lot of my, you know what I'm saying. So, but it was important to your point of to humanize these kids, because exactly what you just said. I didn't want to turn them into the thing that we're already introducing them to be, right? Like I wanted to show that they're just kids. And it goes it cuts straight against like the idea of treating them like adults, right? It's straight against that, because it's like, no, these are kids, and we got to remember that. Another one of the stories I really like is like Ramon's with his cousin, and this duality of like you trying to do this one thing, but the people around you might be like in the streets or doing their thing, and like making that choice and making that decision. These are things that kids. And the crazy thing is, kids really do have to. They have to make some pretty tough decisions that might cripple some adults, right?
Sure.
But growing up in a city like this, we've been kind of like, tried by fire. You know what I'm saying? So we can handle it, right? We built for it. But that doesn't mean that we should be or need to be or should have to be, because we are kids. And do kids get to enjoy their childhood when they grow up in communities like some of the ones represented in Promise Boys? The answer is no, and that's unfortunate. And I think once we can turn the school system around, we can try to allow the space for these kids to be kids.
So before 2 more questions, and then we're gonna open it up. So like what I like most about the book. So we're talking about the book in a vacuum because y'all ain't read it yet, but y'all finna read it tonight. But based on the way we're talking about it, you would think that there are 3 people talking. That this book is like these 3 main characters are all having their moment. But it's like 10,000 people in this book talking, right? There's like a bunch of people. So like you might be reading, and it may be like a dude from because they're taking testimony from everybody, trying to figure out how to are these kids guilty? Yeah. Right? Or are one of these kids guilty?
Yeah.
And so the way the book is written, the format, which I want you to talk about, is that there are tons of voices in the book, right? So some are like a page, some are a paragraph, some are a sentence, some are a few pages, right? Newspaper clips, text messages. It's like, multimedia in the book. Like, it's dope. So like, if you're a young person reading, you really gonna be like, oh, this is gonna hold your attention, right? And for us adults who need a little help, right? Shout out to us, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many sort of kinds of people that you write into the book that I think is so dope, and that builds out the city as a character.
That's the thing,
right? The city as a character. You got like the hood dudes, you got like the dope boy, and it's super dope. So talk a little bit about that.
I mean, again, it was that wanting to build out the community. Again, when I'm like, okay, we setting this in DC, how do we include? Actually, so there were some characters that were even taken out, because I had like the corner store owner, the bus driver. You know what I mean? I was really trying to like give a full scope of what it's like being the kid in the city. This is what I remember, right? You wake up, walk into the train station, you see the person in the booth, get on the train, it's the person who, you know what I'm saying, who bumping into you, you gotta have a talk with. Is all of these different people throughout the city, and I just wanted you to feel that, you know what I mean? I wanted you to really feel immersed, I guess is the word, like you was really in the city, like you was really in DC. And there was a book that was How It Went Down. I know we read early on that
Kekla Magoon, How It Went Down.
Yeah, who did something similar, and it was just, and also it has the mystery really, really well. It's like the stuff that Rian Johnson's doing with like Glass Onion and all, and
you
Knives
just
Out.
create red herrings all over the place.
All over the place, because all of our POVs are faulty, right? Because they're all told through our own perspectives, right? And we're never sitting in the shoes of the other people around us. So you can see something and it happens one way. Or Vantage Point is another movie, right? You can see something and it happens one way. I can see something and I have a whole different story of what went down. You know what I'm saying? And I think that happens all the time. And so it's a great way to hide a mystery, because you don't really know whose POV to trust.
Yeah. My last question, honestly, that part alone, by the way, is enough to read the book. I'm not gonna hold you. Like that, the format of the book, the way the book is written, honestly, is enough for you to kind of lean into the process of reading it. It goes so fast, and it's super snappy, and it's super clever the way it's written. Like, to me, I was most impressed by all the voices, just so you know.
Okay.
I take my hat off to you. Like, it was brilliant.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, to be honest. Writing all of it.
Like, it's obvious that, like, you can always tell what a love is, right? It's obvious that, like, that's what you were getting off on. And there's a lot of people talking in the book. And I think it's really easy to mess that up. Yeah. But if you get it right, I think you create something really, really special. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Which I think you did.
Appreciate
My last question is a question I ask everybody. By the way, young people, old people, everybody in between, get your questions together, because we're going to do Q&A. We still doing Q&A, remember, right? We're going to do Q&A. My last question is a question I ask everybody, every single person that I talk to on any kind of stage. The question is, look back to your 10-year-old self.
Mm-hmm.
What would you thank 10-year-old Nick for?
What would I thank 10-year-old Nick? I would thank 10-year-old Nick, man, for just trying to think. I think for just being comfortable with yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like, because for me, I was always like I like writing, I like movie. I was real into movies. I was real into just shit everybody wasn't into. You know what I'm saying? And just I think it served me well now. You know what I'm saying? Like I think at the time, and not even at that time, but at any time you're 10, it's easy to see what everybody else is doing and be like, oh, okay, let me try that. Right? It's easy to do that. But I was never like that. I'm really rebellious. Like I said, I'm kind of destructive. Like whatever somebody else is doing, I want to figure out the other thing that suits me. And
I thought you was gonna say you was a hater. I was about to be wow. About to be like, wow.
No.
Whatever they doing, I ain't doing. That's a hater.
No. It's more so. Yeah, I'm a little bit rebellious. Like, I mean, obviously, if everybody's doing something I think is really cool, then cool. Let's rock with it.
Of course.
Yeah. But that's not always. It's not again being 10 in the city. Sometimes that's not. A lot of times it's not the case. Everything that everybody 10. Like you said, we'll talk. But I've been in situations where it's like, that's certainly not the thing to be doing right now. You know what I'm saying? And I think I thank myself. I made really good choices because going up here, things could go different ways. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what I would thank myself for, making good choices. You know what I'm saying? And just being comfortable being like, I'm gonna do this. I don't really need to. I don't need to be cool. I don't need to do that. You know what I'm saying? I could just do what I want to do. So yeah.
That's dope. I know that we have danced around the book quite a bit. I hope it at least gives you enough meat for you to want to bite down, right? Enough of an appetizer for you. But let me see what this is about. I wish we could talk more about it, but we can't because we can't. It's day one, right? Holla at us. Wherever he had in 2 weeks, go to that one. And then you're going to be like, you get into all of the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
But now we want to open it up for some questions, some Q&A. If you got questions, how we doing it? You got questions, put your hand up, and we can make it happen.
Actually, we have 2 teen council members here.
Perfect.
Jared and Jennifer, who will be moderating for us. So come on up. I'm going to give you the mics. And so raise your hand, and either Jennifer or Jared will give you guys the mic so you can answer your question. Here you go. Come on down, guys. Over here. Jennifer. So one of you on this side and one over here. All right, who has a question?
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having this open panel. This is really great. I'm here with my 13-year-old son and also my 16-year-old son, who's actually in dual enrollment college class right now in the back. But I have a question for you. You guys talked about earlier the language in DC, which is very unique. And I'm really curious to know your process of getting caught up on the language or the slang so you can implement it in the book, because I know growing up in DC we use one term like you mentioned, and then it changed. Like when I started working with youth, it was totally different. It was like a new language I had to learn, and now even today, since when I started, it's completely different. So can you talk a little bit about the journey of how you were able to get caught up on the time frame in which you wrote the book, because I don't know if it's present day or a few years back, how you were able to kind of get caught up on how kids speak today.
For sure. Well, first I say I hope I am caught up. I mean, I hope ain't no kids. I hope
big swings in there, champ. I was like,
they go read it and be like, yo, we ain't saying this. But I mean, it's just a multi-layer, right? Like growing up here, then I would coach football here, I taught here, and again, the other big thing is hip hop. Like you know what I'm saying? I think it's all in the rap music, and that's the genre of music I listen to. So I feel like that really helped prep me a lot. Again, being from here, all my friends and family are from here. They still teach here. You know what I'm saying? I still talk to them, right? So they still talk the same way. So it wasn't something I think I consciously like, yo, I got to go study that. To be honest, it was something I felt like I had a handle on. Like I felt like I had a handle on that, which is why I remember when I was asked like, yo, where you want to set the book? DC is no question. Like I feel like I know the city and yeah. So like I said, hopefully I'm right. We'll see.
I hope so too, Nick.
Oh, you're holding it. I think this is a terrific topic. And the idea of discipline, and you raised the question about the rooted word, which is discere, which means to learn in the Latin. And the question is to learn what? And so is it the learning of just being orderly and following instructions, et cetera? But because learning is very difficult to take place. I'm a DC public school teacher until they eliminated my course teaching African American history at Jefferson. But without order, learning is very difficult. So how do you deal with that in your book in terms of trying to navigate that very difficult fine line?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question because like everybody learns differently. You know what I mean? And I think at least the time that I spent as an educator, sometimes the focus is too much on the order and trying to get kids to be orderly, sit down, be quiet so that you can beat the knowledge into them. But we all learn differently. And I'll give you a great example. When I was a kid, I would get in trouble a lot because I didn't like sitting down. I had to walk around the class I had to just walk, I had to move. And my mother's here, she could probably attest to it. But so they was like, I think something's wrong with this kid because he keeps moving around the classroom to do his work. And so, of course, nothing ended up being wrong with me. But going fast forward to where I'm teaching, I was in the classroom, I had a co-teacher, and I never forget. And this guy had been teaching for a long time. And it was a white guy. He was teaching for a minute. And it was my first year teaching. And we had a kid who would not sit down. And he got the kid in trouble. He was like, yo, I think it's the same type of thing. And I was able to pull that teacher to the side and say, you know, that was me when I was a kid. You don't have to sitting down in the chair don't mean you're going to learn necessarily any better depending on who you are, right? So the question of you can't learn without order, I think order and learning just looks different for every kid. And so what I would say to that is you got to learn the kid. You got to know what works for that kid and what order looks like for that kid because order don't look the same for every kid. Some like me, I might have stuff all over my whiteboard, and somebody might look at this and say, this is a big mess. But to somebody else, you know what I'm saying? This is their thing. So to that, I just say you got to learn the kid. Like I don't think there's a right or wrong about order. I think it's just the kid. I don't know. Yeah.
Greetings.
What's up, Uncle?
Mr. Nicholas Benjamin Brooks.
Hold up now.
Now, to set the record straight,
Yeah.
educare also means to educate and pedagogical concerns is method of teaching. I just wanted to congratulate you on the word, title, and book. Promise Boys can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
And I know that it may seem like this is a real hard question for you, since I know a little bit about you personally, but in terms of the book, you were working and you did so much great work up at Benjamin Banneker High School. And you taught me a great lesson, and that is in terms of football, because Benjamin Banneker didn't have a football team. But no, Nicholas Brooks wants to play football.
That's what I'm like, yeah, man.
So he actually was in school, and he went to another school just to play ball. So that taught me something. I want to thank you for that. That's a lot of ingenuity. So my question is, in the book, in terms of Promise Boys, how do you measure up with that word today in terms of commitment? Some of these young men, they want to be great ball players, and at the same time, they want to do the academics, because it was an academic high school. So how did you do it?
Yeah. You lost me a little bit there. Let me try and think. I think so. One more time. What's the question, real quick? How did I do both? Oh, how did I do both? Yeah. Got you. I don't know. I mean, I always did a lot. You know, I like doing a lot. I'm kind of a busybody. You know, like you said, I'm a kind of a busybody. So doing a lot actually helps me. It gives me structure. If I just went to school and then I get into something else, you know what I mean? So I think I learned early on that having a lot of things to do and filling my time with things actually was better for me. So I think that was one of the things. And then, you know, if you want to play ball, at least at that time when I was playing ball and thinking about trying to really take it serious, I knew I had to go to college. You know what I'm saying? So I knew I had to at least have some decent grades. It's not like I was Aurelius Ben. That's who I was playing against. You know, I think at the time it was Aurelius, and it was I think it was Big Marvin. Like there was some guys in the city who was playing, right? They was gonna go to the league. I wasn't them, right? You see my size, so it's like, well, I had to have at least some grades too. So any kids who I think are playing, who play ball, you know, that's something to be thinking about. And then also having a backup plan too, right? Because I'm not trying to be on the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta have a backup plan. You know what I'm saying? I gotta be able to support myself. You know me. I always been like a hustler. Like, I gotta be able to support myself. I gotta be able to make money. And so it was like I gotta get an education too, just in case this whole football thing don't work out.
That's your uncle.
That's my uncle.
And let me tell you something. It's nothing better It's nothing better than an uncle, dog.
Yeah.
Except for grandmas. It's like uncles and grandmas. It's like the best thing in the world.
Facts.
Like, shout out to all the uncles in the room.
He
Like,
took
the
me to
best.
get my driver's license. I'll tell you something real quick. Now I'm getting too much. But since he went on a tangent, I'll tell a tangent. Because he taught me. It's funny. I taught you something. You taught me something. When I was going to get my driver's license, I hope this ain't too much of your business. We get up to the DMV. The dude get in the car. Sir, we can't use this car. Why not? Your engine light on.
Cause that's what uncles do, you know.
So Uncle Jay was like, so of course I'm pissed. I'm like, you ain't know that? Like, I'm like, bro, you ain't know what I couldn't get the license with your engine light on. He's like, I got you. So we went to one of his mans. He had a little machine to hook it up, get the engine light off. You know what I'm saying? We went back the same day. He was like, you gotta make an appointment. He was like, nah, we back. You know what I'm saying? He was like, nah, we back. The engine light off. What's up? Took the test, I passed it. So that's my uncle. So yeah.
That's what uncles do, you know what I'm saying?
That's what uncles do.
My man said, oh, no, we going back today.
We ain't going back today. He was like, nah, I'm not disappointing my nephew.
Hey, so Jason had alluded earlier with a quote that you have at the beginning, Nick, about this book being in schools, and I am a teacher and administrator at a school. What do you hope administrators, students, and teachers take from this when we bring this into our classrooms?
Yeah, so it goes a little bit to the gentleman where I was talking to him about the idea of like order and education and what that means and how that looks and how we educate/police our kids, our black and brown kids in underserved communities. I'm hoping that they read this and rethink that, right? And start to look at their own practices that they have in place and again, it's a system, it's a really big issue. It's not something we can solve overnight, but I'm hoping that they read this book and just reflect on what are the things that we're doing in our school that really serve these kids and what are the things that maybe aren't, you know what I'm saying? And it's a conversation piece to start some type of reform. I'm gonna get you, T.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, everyone. My question is, can you share a little bit about your writing process? Like, is it very structured and orderly, and like you have a certain flow of getting your ideas out, or do you kind of just like go off of vibes? That's my first question. And then my second question is, what did you edit out of the book and why?
My process is I write a lot of different things, you know, so books, film, TV, music, like it's a lot, and not just YA, but picture book, middle grade, like it's just a bunch of different things. I think in general, I start with first I have to write from an outline, you know, but before that even I'm getting into like synopsis mode, and before that, I'm just putting ideas down. It is structured. I usually start writing around like 10 a.m. and I write in 45-minute increments. Like I can't just, like I can only really work in 45-minute increments. Like after 45 minutes, I'm like, I need to go on a walk. I need to go shoot some basketball. I need to do something just to kind of like decompress, and then, you know, so.
Use a tomato timer? Use the Pomodoro?
I don't. I know what you're talking about, though, because I use those in the classroom. What do I really just, I mean, it's not like hard, you know, like 45 I gotta stop, but in general it's like around you could feel it, right? At this point, you know, because you know at this point you feel it. It's like, okay, I'm done for now. But what I'm saying is I'm not writing like all day. Like I'm not doing that. I'll write for a little bit, I'll take a step back, go, you know what I'm saying? But definitely, so doing that, writing from outlines, music, I'm one of the people who like to write with like music on, because especially if I'm trying to catch a certain vibe or writing a certain scene and I want it to feel a certain way, I'll find some music that fits that tone. What else? I mean, those are just some general kind of thoughts, but the other thing is like writing is rewriting, you know what I'm saying? So like I'm writing something, I've got to revisit it and revisit it and revisit it. Getting feedback is another thing, a part of the process. Like the people you trust, you know what I'm saying? Definitely the people you trust. Hey, can you give me notes? One, trust to be vulnerable with, but then two, trust like their notes to know like, okay, they have good story sense or whatever that is. I don't know, you got any other things in it?
I mean, everybody's process is different.
Everybody, yeah.
Right? Like everybody finds that I can't write to music, bro.
Yeah.
Like, cause no. I can write to voices talking.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
I can put on a podcast and work.
I do that, yeah.
Because it feels like you in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? But I can't write to like unless it's wordless. I can put on like some jazz or something that's a little more ambient, but I can't put on like my jams and then work because then I'm gonna be rapping and everything else. You know what I mean? I write a lot to like movies on mute.
Same.
A lot of film on mute. And I am one of the people who work all day. So like I'm like a go hard type.
Just
like
go all day.
7 in the morning. 7 at night.
No breaks.
Just gangster. I take a break. I usually take a break for lunch. Take a nap at 3. Get up at 4. We rock.
And back at it.
Like hardcore 5 days a week. Unless, especially if I'm on deadline. If I'm not on deadline, then like it's not as intense. It's still 7, but it's like 7 to like 2. And then I'm chilling.
No, for sure.
So everybody got their way.
Everybody got different.
There was what? You got your men. You got your peoples.
My man. And then somebody else, whoever else.
Make sure you get your peoples.
What's going on, brother?
What's good, son?
Not much. So I don't know if you all know. How you doing, sir? I don't know if you all know. This is my brother. We went to high school together, junior high school together as well. Did a lot. My question to you in this book: how are you portraying DC? Black boys from DC in this book. Knowing as we grew up, we were pretty versatile. We were able to do a lot of things. We weren't just that. Whatever people looked at us as, that surface level. We were really deep, on many levels. So how are you portraying the black youth in this book for those who are reading, to kind of show them how we were back in the day and, against what, contemporary thoughts are.
For sure. I think in a similar way. I think kind of like we were saying, like cutting against the idea. I mean, these boys, like you said, they're well-rounded. They're not perfect by any means. That's why they're at this school. They're not perfect. But they are innocent, like they're kids. They have crushes on girls. They have dreams of owning a restaurant. They want to play basketball. They crack jokes, they joning. Like, they very well-rounded. They
don't say joning no more, dog.
What they say?
They don't say that. I know they don't say joning. They don't say that no more.
Now they might not say joning no more, but I don't say joning in the book. So there we go. No, they very well-rounded and but still and they make good choice. Again, there's a JB, right? One of the scenes he got a scene with his homie who's trying to sell him a gun, and he makes a choice in that moment, knowing that he has beef with people around the city. He makes the choice not to purchase the weapon, right? So it's not like, for me, they are well-rounded. They are good representations of like how they're kind of like how we were. You know what I'm saying? Like. They kids, you know what I'm saying? But they kids. This is the good kid, Mad City. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Was this your first book, and when you became a writer?
Yeah, so I started writing initially a long time ago when I was teaching. Right, I was teaching in Southeast at DC Scholars. I was teaching babies, kindergarten and first grade. And none of the books had any characters that looked like the kids that I was teaching. And so I was coming from, again, I do a lot of different things. I was doing music, doing a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm teaching right now. I see that there aren't any books here that serve my students. Like, maybe that's something I can explore. So that's when I first started writing. And I did about 9 of those. Those were self-published. We had a middle grade novel come out in October of last year. That was my first novel, Ethan Fairmont, and then this is my second novel here. So it's been a long process, a long journey. But to answer your question, I started in 2014 is when I first started. Yeah. Was there a second part of your question?
Why you became a writer?
Why I became? Man, it's something that's been in me, bro. Like. What was it? Second grade where I wrote I wrote a graphic novel, or I'm sorry, I wrote a comic book in second grade. And that was something that I couldn't tell you why, to be honest. It was just like, it just felt right. Then again, I got into music. It was DMX who really got me started. DMX and a little bit Tupac, but mostly DMX, who got me really like writing music. Got into that, and then it just became the way I could communicate. It seemed to work for me. It seemed like how I could express myself. And from then on, I just continued to perfect the pen. You know what I'm saying? But it started with music. The thing is second grade, right? But it started with music, like writing lyrics, and that's what really did it. Yeah. Dope.
So that is it for tonight's event. I want to thank you both again so much, Jason and Nick. This was a great conversation.
Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And happy book debut, happy book birthday. Incredible. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. Books are still available to purchase, Promise Boys. If you would like to, over outside these doors over here. We're going to take a moment, just a brief break, and then Nick will be available to personalize. All of your books are signed that you've purchased tonight. But he will take a moment to personalize your copies if you'd like, and take a few pictures. So that's going to be over here where this desk is, where Paula, thank you Paula, is raising a copy of Promise Boys. So if you're interested in that, please start to line up, and yeah, that's what we'll do. Yes.
Before you go to the signing line, can I get you all to hold up your books really quickly? I'm so excited. Oh, hold them up high, don't be scared. Hold them up high, hold them up. And so, Nick, do you mind standing right here so that you can take a picture with all these books? Jason, you too, will you mind joining?